Hey guys, in this video I wanted to talk about how worrying is an addiction. So when you're speaking in general terms, there's the object or the action that you're addicted to, as well as why you are addicted to it. More specifically, what feelings or what are you running away from that's causing you to cling and immerse yourself in this addiction. Specifically, I want to talk about worrying. If any of you guys know me personally, I am a huge worrywart. I always have been. I have anxiety. And no one has ever referred to worrying as an addiction to me before. It's always just that's just the way you are. It's who you are, And you just kind of roll with it. And that is just, the narrative in your head. This is just who I am. I worry. But by observing other people and then getting really tired of finding myself in the same cycle of just torturing myself over and over and over again and not having really anything that justified my worrying, whatever happened would happen anyway, right? I sort of realized that maybe worrying is an addiction, because even when things are going well for me, I would still find something to worry about. And I just sort of realized in my head, I was like, I would find something to worry about no matter what the situation was. And it's sort of dawned on me, like, it's more than just who I am. It's a conscious decision that I'm making to perpetuate this cycle. And I think the reason why worrying is so addictive is because it gives us a false sense of control. With every addiction, there's a high, right? There's something that makes you feel good, it makes you feel excited, and it's a quick onset and a quick offset. Lifts you really high, drops you really low, and it's hardly ever really based or grounded in reality. It's about allowing you to escape uncomfortable feelings, right? And I think the most uncomfortable feeling for me is feeling like I'm not in control. That I'm not in control of who I am, that I'm not in control of what's around me or what will happen in my future. And that has always been a large source of my anxiety. And worrying is sort of like a trap, by turning events over and over and over in my head and analyzing them, it sort of gives me a false sense of security that by obsessing over things that may or may not even happen and hypotheticals in my head, that I'm somehow influencing the course of nature, that I'm somehow manifesting what I want by worrying about what's going to happen next. And that's the high that I fall prey to every time I decide to worry about a situation. And it's a lie, because the thoughts in your head don't mean anything unless you have telekinesis, right? Like, you can't do anything with the thoughts in your head unless you actually act on them. And yes, thoughts are powerful, affirmations are powerful, but then on the other hand, they can be very detrimental if you're not watching them. And I think we also give them more power than they actually have. My point is that worrying is like just dipping your head in a toilet for no reason, because you just don't know what's going to happen in the future. The only thing that matters is what you can prepare yourself. Like, what actions can you take? Like, if you're worried about a test, for instance, you can't control what questions are going to be on there or how you're feeling the day of your test. To an extent, you can't control like whether or not you're able to get the answers in your head on the day of the test. But what you can control is making sure you study, practicing, doing review questions, and doing the best that you can to prepare with the knowledge that you have. But worrying is excessive and pretty much always unnecessary. Really the only thing that it does is that it keeps you trapped in your head, and it prevents you from doing the things you need to actually be prepared, actually manifest the future and the events that you want. What I'm trying to say here is the things that you can control are your actions, and worrying takes you away from that, and it sort of makes you forget. And but somehow it's become so addictive, even though it's absolutely useless. And I think it's really just because it's wired into our emotional circuits, you know, like thinking about something over and over in our head makes us feel in control, and then that makes us feel good, and just being caught in our head doesn't allow us to see the reality of the situation, like, oh, it's not actually going to change anything for me. So that's sort of what I learned about how worrying is an addiction for me. And it's crazy because it's not something that I really thought of before. It was just like, oh, this is part of me. And so I want to also talk about how I think we can overcome worrying as an addiction, and it has two parts. So I think the two main parts are understanding the long-term consequences of what you're doing, like why, like logically thinking about it. Why isn't this helpful? Why does this not matter? Why do I need to stop doing this? Giving yourself a reason, and then coming up with a plan. I can sit here all day and tell you why worrying is useless, worrying doesn't matter, and you can repeat those things to yourself, but if you don't have a plan, if you don't really understand how you fall into the cycle of worrying and what it looks like in your head and how it affects your daily life, then you're basically fighting nothing. You have to have direction with your plans. You have to have direction if you want to know where you're going. So for me personally, worrying. For me, I realize that the long-term consequences are just making me older faster because stress has, you know, a biochemical response in your body. You release more cortisol. Cortisol makes you more prone to overeat and stress and have poor quality of sleep and make bad decisions in your personal, your physical life, eating poorly. It like has a lot of domino effects. It gives you less to work with when you're at work. It makes it harder for you to focus, to function. And it just overall reduces the quality of your life in every area of your life. And so for me, that is the long-term consequence of not learning how to manage my worrying or stop it completely. So what is my plan to handle this? Well, I see a counselor, for instance, and she helps me sort through my thoughts, take the motion out of it. I journal. So whenever I'm particularly emotional, have a lot going on, I just type it all out. And sometimes just getting it out of my head is what makes me realize how unreal it actually is. Like, it's real when it's in your head, but once it's out on paper, you're just like, oh, you know, you got to take it out of your head and either share it with somebody, say it out loud, type it down, draw it, paint it, sing about it, whatever it is, get it out of your head. And then finally, just reminding myself every time I feel, what does worry feel like to me? Worry feels like a knot in my stomach. I'm short of breath. I can't think straight. I'm fumbling. When I recognize myself in that state, however worry manifests itself to you, I stop myself and I think, okay, what's the worst that could happen? What's the best that could happen? And is this an issue that I can solve in my head? Or is this something that I just need to do my best and wait and see what happens? And that's sort of my process right now. I'm still refining it, but I thought it might be really helpful to you guys to learn to see worrying as like an addiction and not just a character flaw or just something that's a part of you that you have no control over because it's just who you are, because that is absolutely not true. So if you've been just destroying yourself, worrying and stressing, I hope that you find this video and I hope that it changes your perspective so that you can make changes towards a happier and more peaceful life. Thank you.